What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. And on this video, I'm going to take you guys through my chip strategy for the upcoming FPL season. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. It's too early to plan our chip strategy, but yes, I do actually agree with that. But it's never too early to actually start planning, and at least now we know what we have in our arsenal and when to actually use it. So throughout this video, yes, we have multiple chips that we're going to talk about, but the main focus of this video will be about the 3 wildcards. Yes, 3. Reminder that we do have actually 3 wildcards this Premier League season, and when in specific to use the first one. But don't worry, this video doesn't mean that we can't be modular throughout the season. We can adjust to what's happening in the game. We could even use an early wildcard if needed. And being modular is always important to have a great FPL season as you're reacting to what's in front of you, but also considering what's in the future. So let me know in the comments down below, do you guys have a first wildcard, a plan? Are you using it in game week 3? Are you using an early wildcard, a late wildcard? And what's your current thinking about the rest of the chips? But without further ado, I'm going to give you guys my chip strategy. So sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. This video has been sponsored by fantasyfootballfix.com. Supercharge your FPL rank. Introducing the Elite XI team reveal from the world's greatest managers, as well as pre-deadline captain data from the FPL's Elite. Boost your rank with the powerful squad optimization, as well as price change predictions throughout the game weeks. Opta stats and player points projections, plus much more. Find out more about the features available and upload your squad for free at fantasyfootballfix.com. So the first talking point that we're going to go over is about the chips and what's available in front of us, excluding the wildcard. So as you guys know, the 3 chips are going to be the triple captain, the bench boost, and the free hit, and unfortunately we only have one of these chips throughout the entire season. So my kind of take on these chips is I won't be discussing them at all. I'm going to simply react to what's happening in front of us, and you guys know me with the bench boost and a triple captain. I love to use them on a double game week and the free hit on the biggest blank game week of the season. Now, just a reminder to you guys that last season and the prior season have been quite a unique in terms of the double game weeks and the blank game weeks. Due to the C word, we've had massive doubles, massive blanks, that sort of thing. However, the more conservative seasons like this one upcoming, hopefully, touch wood, that'll be a normal season, but usually we only have a few doubles and maybe 1 or 2 blanks. So therefore, the options of using these chips on a double and a blank will be reduced, and therefore we might have similar strategies, but I'm going to leave that for a later stage. But saying that, if you guys have done a long-term plan, maybe looked at Ben Krellin's game week schedule, you guys might already know when you're going to use the bench boost and the triple captain. So let me know in the comments down below if you guys are one of those people. But as I mentioned in the introduction, the main focus of this video is going to be about the wildcard, and yes, we do have 3 this season. Now, if you guys don't know that we have 3, if you guys did look at the rules, there's a little bit of a kind of caveat in terms of the transfer page, where they did tell us during the World Cup we were actually going to be given a free wildcard. So what that means, kind of laying it out, the first wildcard can be used from game week 2 to game week 16. You can't use it in game week 1 because we basically have a wildcard in game week 1. So from game week 2 to game week 16 is when you guys can use the first wildcard. Then the second wildcard becomes available during the World Cup. So whatever 2 months, 1 month and a half, where these players are traveling to the Qatar World Cup, will be given a free wildcard or unlimited transfers as they've stated before game week 17 when the Prem resumes. So the first talking point there is probably don't use it in game week 16, at least your first wildcard, because in game week 17 we get a free one, so rather use it a little bit earlier than game week 16. Now the third wildcard becomes available from game week 18 to game week 38, so game week 17's wildcard means that game week 18 is probably the first time that you guys can use a second one, but usually what I like to do is prolong that as long as possible. So just off the wildcard timing structure, I can tell you that you probably want to use your first wildcard either early on or halfway between game week 2 and game week 16. The second wildcard, we don't have a choice, and the third wildcard, I try and use it as late as possible, preferably around those doubles and those blanks. And if you guys don't know, those usually come about the late 20s. So post-production Dayvy here, I'm going to hop on this track because I actually forgot to talk about the most important talking point, and that's going to be about the schedule. Now, I'm not exactly talking about kind of game week 1 to game week 5, do these game weeks happen on a weekend, a midweek, that sort of thing. I'm talking about the external factors that might actually have an impact on the game weeks and therefore an impact on our chip strategy. So for example, the first talking point which will have the most importance on our wildcard strategy is going to be the international break that happens between game week 8 and game week 9. Now I know what you guys are thinking, we have an international break so close to the start of the season. I know these international breaks are super annoying, but they could actually be a good opportunity to use our wildcard. Now the first false fact that I want to put to bed is that there are a massive amount of price rises over the international break, and therefore a wildcard could be a good strategy to catch those. Now I want to tell you guys that that's not a fact because every single season we have this kind of talking point, and what happens? The international break comes around and hardly any price rises and price drops happen. But at least you'll be able to adjust to the injury news happening over the international break, and there always are some rumors that go around with managers and how they're going to approach the upcoming games. There might also be some players that kind of overexert themselves in their international teams, and that might cause for some rotation in the Prem. So that's why an international break could actually be a good opportunity to use the wildcard. So game week 8, game week 9, this obviously means the game week 9 wildcard will be in play. So right off the bat, that looks like probably the best opportunity to use the chip. But let's wait and see if that correlates with further talking points. Now the next talking point is going to revolve around the European competitions, the Champions League, the Europa League, and I would assume the Conference League also starts around game week 6. So game week 6 or the midweek after game week 6 is going to be when these European competitions kick off their group stages, and I think the Champions League is probably the most priority on that list. The reason I'm saying that is that it's the most prestigious competition. We own a lot of these premium assets. I do think there might be some rotation as we see managers shift their focus from the Prem to the Champions League. But because it is the start of the season, I don't think there's going to be too much rotation there, but it is something to watch out for, and if you guys want a wildcard around game week 6, I would take this into consideration. Now the last talking point is going to revolve around the EFL Cup, which begins the midweek after game week 15. I think it's the first round, but I wouldn't put too much focus on this as most teams will probably play second string sides and our premium assets will probably get rested. So out of these three, I would definitely focus on the international break as that's a prime time to wildcard in my opinion, then maybe also take into consideration the European competitions, especially the Champions League. But I would say to conclude this point, right now, game week 9 looks absolutely prime, but let's see if it correlates with upcoming talking points. But now that we've actually taken a look at the layout of these wildcards, I'm going to kind of focus on game week 2 to game week 16 and give you guys my opinion on when you guys should use the first wildcard. Now, as I said, please don't use this as kind of gospel. If there's going to be some reactionary things, if you need an early wildcard because of a bad start, 100% go for that. But on the current planning of fixtures, this is how I would take it. So what we're going to be going over is every team in the top 6, and then we're going to finalize it with 2 teams that I'm watching currently, as I do expect them to have a great Premier League season, but the top 6 allows us to get a good idea of what our team is probably looking like. And the reason I say that is that the triple ups, the double ups, these are probably going to come from these top 6 sides, and then the more differentials will come from the lower teams that might have a talisman or are in actual good form. So the first team I'm going to go over in chronological order of last season's finishings. I'm going to be going over Man City first, and as you guys can see, I've got the fixtures from game week 1 to game week 16 below. Now the first thing I want to say about Man City is I do consider them to be a fixture-proof team. What I'm saying there is that if they do have a tough run of fixtures, they're playing a Liverpool, they're playing a Chelsea, a Spurs, I do still expect them to do well. However, I don't think the highest ceiling are going to be on those games. But when looking at Man City, the left-hand side of the fixtures from game week 1 to 8 looks simply outstanding. I would definitely consider double up or triple up on Man City just because they are such a quality team and their players are pretty good as well. But then on the right-hand side, we do see a dip in form from game week 9 against United. Is that a bad fixture? Is that a good fixture? Who kind of knows? But that will be one of those reactionary things that we will get to in game week 8. Then go on to game week 11 where they have Liverpool and Arsenal back to back. I consider those to be tougher games. The Liverpool one definitely harder than the Arsenal one. And then in game week 14 they travel away to Leicester as well. Now the thing to note about these games is that it is 3 away games, which might not be as great for Man City as a kind of a home fixture at the Etihad. But as I said, Man City are a fixture proof team and definitely that run of fixtures isn't going to put me off kind of owning them. But this could be a nice change if you guys are going for a Haaland. Maybe Spurs have better fixtures from game week 11 to game week 14. This could be one of those things that you consider into a wildcard. But for now, I generally think Man City's fixtures from game week 1 to game week 16 look pretty good. We're now going to move on to the next team, and that's also going to be Liverpool. You guys would have predicted if you watched the Prem season, second in the Prem last season, narrowly to Man City. But just like Man City, I consider them to be a fixture-proof team. We saw last season how Liverpool absolutely destroyed some of their top 6 opposition, United included in that, but are they going to have the same luck this season? Who kind of knows? But looking at Liverpool's fixtures, they do have some bad fixtures here and there. Game week 8 against Chelsea away isn't that great. And then in game week 10 to 11, they have Arsenal and also Man City. But Man City vs Liverpool can also be quite a high scoring game. But I think if you had to put your nail down on it, that game week 9 fixture against Brighton, yes, it is a home game, but usually Brighton don't really concede that many. So I would say the good run of fixtures end at about game week 8 and then resume about game week 13. I think game week 8 to game week 12 might be a little bit of a nice run of going without Salah and going for better options in terms of the captain with better fixtures. So right off the bat here, game week 8 might be a nice little swing of fixtures if you guys have a Liverpool triple up. As myself, this might be the time to use the first wildcard. But saying that, you might want to save 2 free chances before game week 8, then ship Salah and Trent or Robbo out or Diaz even, and then wildcard in game week 13 to bring that triple up back in. Now the next team to go over is going to be Chelsea, and Chelsea actually have some great fixtures from game week 1 to game week 16. Yes, these fixtures might not be as great as maybe FPL are saying, but honestly the game week 8 fixture against Liverpool is probably the only one I would avoid, and it is also a home game at Stamford Bridge. I guess game week 13 is the run of 4 games that might not be as appealing as the others, but I generally think Chelsea assets aren't the ones to target on a wildcard. So let's go to another club in London to decide if that team kind of decides when we're going to wildcard or not. It's going to be those Spurs assets, and generally the Spurs fixtures are a little bit hit or miss. I can't really see a run of form that is super good. They have 1 or 2 red fixtures, 1 or 2 pink fixtures in there that kind of block those good runs, and that's why Spurs are quite a hard team to predict. But what I would say is from about game week 7, they have Man City away, which isn't a great one. Then they go on a run of teams that might be slightly mediocre to kind of hard fixtures, but then in game week 14 they have Bournemouth away. But I generally would think that come game week 7, I might ship off these Spurs assets, take that run from game week 7 all the way to game week 16, as even when they have some great fixtures that aren't as good as maybe other teams. So let's keep that in mind for game week 6 in terms of Spurs, and let's move on to the next team. The next team is going to be the North London rival of Spurs. It's going to be these Arsenal assets that finished 5th in the Prem last season, and in terms of the Arsenal opening run, that looks great, but then they hit with some bad fixtures. So I think the United away fixture is still doable in terms of those early games. I think kind of the run only starts from about game week 9. That looks pretty bad. Spurs at home, Liverpool at home, and then also Man City at home in the next 4. Now I think game week 9 is probably the perfect time to jump off these Arsenal assets, and if you like myself, I own a couple of them, so this might actually be a good time to wildcard. But that game week 11 fixture is going to be quite hard to ignore. Leeds away looks simply outstanding, and then at least from game week 13 onwards, the fixtures don't look that bad. Now the final team to go over in our opening 6 is going to be Manchester United, and in terms of the opening games, they don't look that bad. Unfortunately, they have Liverpool in that third game, which does put a little bit of a span in the works. But then other than that, they have fixtures against Leicester away and Arsenal away in the opening 8. I think from game week 9, like the previous team, we also saw, I think, Man City open up that away game fixture, which will be the turn of events. As I think from then on to about game week 14, I probably wouldn't own these United assets. The only thing that's quite tough about United though is that not many of us are going into game week 1 with them, and I think you almost have to get the best run of fixtures. But saying that, their players are cheap enough for us to be a little bit modular in our midfield and our forward departments, and who kind of knows if Ronaldo is going to be back as of recording this video. So now I'm going to summarize the teams that you guys just saw. Remember that not all of these teams were kind of wildcard dependent. Why I'm saying that is that, for example, Man City, just because they have a bad fixture in game week 11 doesn't mean I'm on a wildcard because I own many of their assets. And same could be said about Chelsea, who only had a bad game in game week 8. So as you guys can see on screen, I've got the top 6, and whenever their fixtures kind of turn, starting off with Man City, game week 11, their fixtures turn slightly, but that's not really wildcard dependent for me. Liverpool in game week 8, we spoke about maybe going with a no Salah, no Trent draft. That could also be quite an interesting one, but just remember that you could also use your free transfers and then wildcard later to bring them back into your team. In terms of Chelsea, as I mentioned, only game week 8 is the really bad fixture for them. Spurs are on game week 7, that's where the fixtures kind of turn, but overall their fixtures are a little bit patchy. And then we're going to finalize with Arsenal and United, who turn in game week 9. So looking at this kind of summary, I would say my early prediction of when I'm going to wildcard is probably going to be around game week 8 or game week 9, just based on the teams that I own. I own a Liverpool triple up, I probably have 2 or 3 Arsenal assets, and therefore if my team looks relatively the same from game week 1 to game week 8, I think that's a great situation to wildcard. Now you guys might have tripled up on different assets, maybe you've gone for United assets, still probably game week 9 looks pretty good, or if you have Chelsea or City assets, you can probably keep them for the majority of the opening 16. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this early prediction. Are you also looking at game week 8, game week 9, or prolonging it to late in the season? But I just don't know how much value you'll get out of that. Then obviously we're doing all this planning, but come game week 3, we might all be on an early wildcard, because that's just how FPL works sometimes. But now to end off the video, I want to give you guys 2 teams that I think will actually have a relatively respectable season, and the first one's actually going to be Leicester. Now, the reason I want to highlight this is that in terms of fixture spins, Leicester have one of the biggest ones, and that comes around game week 6. So from game week 6 to 16, the fixtures look pretty strong, especially that run from about game week 9 to game week 13. Yes, they do have Man City, but the last 2 aren't that bad from a Leicester point of view. So I know that not many of us are considering a Maddison or Vardy in the opening 6, but after that, these could be absolutely stellar with those fixtures. The next team to talk about is going to be Newcastle, a team that has had the new ownership, I think, towards the end of last season under Eddie Howe. They simply look magical, and I'm hoping that form can continue into this Premier League season. Now, like Leicester, the previous team that you just saw, around game week 6, the fixtures also turn. However, Newcastle do have some strong fixtures to start off the season, and therefore it might be worth just holding on to them. But from game week 6 to about game week 10, the fixtures look quite strong. Then we have some patchy fixtures, like the opening couple games for Newcastle. But this was just one of those food for thoughts. Leicester, Newcastle, both turn around game week 6. Could that be the time that you guys use the wild card? I guess it depends how these 2 teams are actually performing over the first 5 game weeks. But let me know what you guys are currently thinking before you watch this video, after you watch this video. Has your plan kind of changed? And when are you planning to use the first wild card? But this is basically wrap the video, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Please leave a like if you did, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Tons of content coming your way before that Friday night deadline, so make sure that you hit that bell notification. But I'm going to sign off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.